racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got everything outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top now!
Oh my god! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Six very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Just Send It, another edition of this weekly series where we change it up every week and we get a new car and a new track. Tonight, it's time for the Porsche RSR around Daytona International Speedway, a track that is famed around the motorsporting world and in amongst the general public as well. Check out this cool new track map feature we've got as we zoom in over the USA into Florida and into Daytona Beach, where you'll find Daytona International Speedway, host of the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona and the Daytona 500 at the start of each and every year, using the course of the first one there, using the road course here, which is about 95% of the oval, plus the infield section thrown in as well, so expect plenty of slipstreaming and drafting in today's race. As always, you're seeing it all live here on SimSpeed TV. My name is Ryan Jones, and alongside me, the voice you know and love with this series is unfortunately not here. So Cameron Dance slots in. Good to have you here, Cam.
Certainly, it's going to be a really, really good night to see what happens and who's going to come out on top and how many lobs we're going to see.
Yeah, and whether you get that internet fixed on your microphone as well will be a pretty interesting one to find out over the course of this race. So 12 corners in length, but realistically it's really only about 6 because the bus stop was 8, 9, 10, and 11, but it feels like just 2 corners. And of course, turn 12, turn 7 are both up on the oval, so they are completely flat out. We got one split tonight, so a big disparity from front to back, so may see some lap traffic coming into play, even with that competition caution we expect every time we go racing in this one. And these Porsches, they are going to provide a massive hole in the air for the car behind to benefit and get that big slipstream effect, Cameron.
Yeah, they certainly will, and it's going to be all about just using that drafty advantage to save a bit of fuel for that pit stop and also try and possibly make it home on a single tank of fuel. We'll see what happens, but yeah, the shorter your pit stop is, the better off you're going to be.
Always the way, and as always, you want to make that stop before the caution comes out, otherwise you'll find yourself taking a fast track all the way to the back of the pack. There's Cooper Webster, the LCT Sports driver. Expects him to be somewhere up towards the front of the field, as he always is. And in practice, he's just getting some practice in, obviously, and following around that Velocity-sponsored car in front of him, who's going to provide a pretty good tow up onto the oval here, and he'll get a good idea of exactly how powerful it is going to be. That is, in fact, Matt Morris. That car in front. We've got some very fast sim races lining up in this one. Dane Warren is out there. Jackson Harlow out there as well. Mitchell McLeod, as always, a streamer, is back in action. And Jared Filsell also turning up to have a lob around Daytona. Let's take a look at the starting grid here, Cameron. So, off the pole, it will be Jackson, Suslin, Harlow. And alongside him, well, there you go, it's Cooper Webster. Jared Filsell will start from third. Steve Jansen on the outside of row 2. Blake Purdy and Job Stewart starting 5th and 6th. Cody Bircher, Dane Warren on the 4th row of the grid. Then Brad Newman and Mario Vitanian making up your top 10.
We go back to Matt Lapino and Mia Ott in 11th and 12th. 13th and 14th will be Kobe Williams and Hayden Val. J. Cool rounding out the top 15 alongside James Golding, Robert Crisdale, and Geordie Decker in 17th and 18th. And rounding out the top 20, Emerson Harvey and Tyler Howard.
Jeff Gordon, Letty Beswick, Ryan Shooter, Lachlan Beneath, Matt Morris, Mitch McLeod, Aidan Brand, Daniel Webster, Jordan Mulak, and Reese Cohen. Your next 10 drivers. Keep your eyes on the screen if you want to see where your favourite driver is in this 55 car grid we've got. And if you want to have a look at all times as to where your favorite person is throughout the course of this race. Have a look over at SimSpeed.live as well. And you can stay up to date with all of the live timing there. The track temp for these drivers under the lights is expectedly cool. 19 degrees, which maybe is actually still a little bit colder than expected. Going to be super grippy out there.
Yeah, it certainly will be. There's plenty of grip for them to use to their advantage to try and throw these Porsche RSRs around, which sound bloody amazing and also handle very, very well. So really, really going to be quite the adventure for a lot of these drivers.
Harlow down on the front row there. Recently departed Altus Esports. A lot of questions over where he's going. If we zoom in on that livery, I think we might have our answer. And I think this has been known amongst sim racing community for a little while as well. G-Drive is where he's headed. European-based team. And sure, we'll get more information about that over the coming days. As we look now to the start alongside his former teammate Cooper Webster. He backs him right up. And then he pins up throttle and gets us underway. It is a good launch for Jackson Harlow. The green flag is out at Daytona. And we are filing down into turn number 1.
Yeah, certainly a very, very good start from Jackson Susan Harlow. Not too bad of a start from Cooper Webster as well, but Jared Filso already making his way up the inside of Steve Jansen, around the outside actually of Steve Jansen, and Jansen now going to come under attack from Job Stewart. He's going to look to the inside, but Jansen's going to try and hold it around the outside at the International Horseshoe, and is actually going to do it very, very well.
Contact throughout the field through turns 1, 2, and 3. They're still wrecking on the exit of the International Horseshoe. About a dozen cars have crashed. Somehow they are still wrecking as everyone comes through that corner. Side by side here for 5th place as Damon Warren had a little look up the inside of Job Stewart. Down into turn 6 there. Stewart covered him off, and it's cost them both a good exit. And they're going to be compromised now. Up onto the oval and the banking we go. Warren tucked right up under that rear wing. It's just out in front of them. Jared Filsell is pulled to the outside of Harlow, who's lost the lead to Cooper Webster.
Yeah, he certainly has, as those lot have been battling up front, although they've actually pulled away from that group behind with Dane Warren and that, and if these guys keep battling together, they might actually get further and further away. But Dane Warren now at the head of that secondary train, and Phil Sell looking to try and go around the outside of it. Jackson Susan Harlow in NASCAR 3 and 4, and it looks like he's going to do it, but Harlow's going to have the draft of the Altus Esports car, but he's not anymore, as Jared Fulsell is instead.
Let's see what Webster does here. Can he defend as Harlow looks all the way down to the inside, 3 abreast into turn number 1 on lap number 2. Phil Sell on the outside of the racetrack locks it up, just gets it pulled up. He'll file into 2nd place behind Harlow. Webster goes from 1st to 3rd on that exchange. And the field now starting to suck right up the back of these guys as they do battle. There's a move around the long way for Phil Sellers. Harlow makes an error and he falls backwards.
Yeah, now Dane Warren is right on the tail of Harlow as well, and Burchin not too far behind as well. So this train just went from the 3 cars to suddenly the whole entire top 10 basically. So it's going to be very, very compact, and it's a very, very quality top 5 as well, with the number of those drivers being very, very big names in the world of sim racing at the moment, and the likes of the Porsche Esports Super Cup and all those sort of series.
That snake of cars, they're pretty much all in touch with each other, those top 10 or so, I would say, as a couple down on pit road. Here's a replay, and this was Mitchell McLeod, who's had to take a tow back to the lane, so he's had an issue down at the first corner as he's jumped onto the brakes.
Yeah, he's coming through turn. He's just looped it and barely touched the wall, but clearly has had major damage from clipping that wall as well, so fortunate for Mitch. But back at the front of the field, Jared Fulsau's got Cooper Webster closing up to the back end of him, and is going to look to the inside, down the front straight onto the tri-oval. But Harlow and Warren aren't too far behind, and nor is Bircher now. Bircher going to Full Sail, sorry, going to look to the outside of Webster. Breaks as late as he dares, and they end up going by, but no move for Full Sail. And Warren is now going to look to make a move on Harlow here.
Don't forget, Warren and Phil Sell, they're both competitors in the Porsche Esports Super Cup, the World Championship of Road Racing on iRacing. Competing on that this year. Last round was postponed. That was supposed to run this week, so they're probably both a bit thirsty for some Porsche action, which is most likely why we're seeing them in the mix today. And no surprise, given their... Oh no, Warren has got into the back of Harlow by the looks of it. And they've both gone around. I was going to say, no surprise to see them at the front, given their resume in these cars, but that's a bit less than optimal for Warren.
Yeah, it certainly was. Just very subtle contact. Actually outbraked Jackson Susan but actually ran into the left rear corner, and unfortunately Harlow sent spinning, and same with Warren as well. He just got clipped on the way by.
So Warren rejoins alongside Reese Cohen. He's got Beswick, Morris, Veld, all for company behind as well. So this is a big train of cars. And this is going to be a little bit dicey at the bus stop chicane. They sort themselves out as Warren tries to sweep around the outside. There's going to be a bit of door-to-door contact. And one of them, that's Reese Cohen, going to get sent straight through the outside of the racetrack. Going to have to take the long route back to the racing surface as here's Phil Sell to the outside once again.
Yeah, once again, the draft playing havoc at the front of the field. Is also going to be able to get around the outside this time. It's looking promising, but again, Webster just holds on up the inside, although also doing an all right job holding his own on the outside that time by, and they're going to go side by side into the International Horseshoe. Also going to have the advantage on the inside, and he will make that move stick finally.
Meanwhile, Harlow and Warren went 3 wide into turn number 1. Warren actually pulled off to the side of the racetrack and has retired, or at least taken it back to pit lane. So it looks like he may be out of this race after making a little mistake and dropping down the order a little ways. See here, the car just takes a right and he jams the brake pedal.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if there was major damage to that kit. Well, a little bit worse damage than he might have thought. That's a moment for the car on the inside of Blake Purdy, and Purdy has actually been hit by that same car. So some more carnage going on further down in the field, and unfortunately Purdy is going to be falling down that order very quickly.
Big shame for him as we go back to live pictures now. So Phil Sell does lead Webster into the bus stop. And out of the bus stop, look for the exit to be very strong now. And he should be able to get by him.
Yeah, he certainly will. And Webster going to look to the outside now of Phil Sell as they head down towards the tri-oval, and both of them flashing their lights as well on the way into the tri-oval. Webster just going to edge Phil Sell out across the line, but just behind them, Cody Bircher getting involved in this as well. And the two at the front go side by side into turn 1 once again, and Full Sail comes out victorious, and Bircher's actually going to get a position as well. So Webster's going to lose 2 for 1 and possibly might lose 3 here if Joe Stewart finds a way on by.
So the Apex Racing team driver leads them as Bircher has found his way to second. Webster loses 2. Joe Stewart, the Shoot Sim Racing guy, just hanging off the back of the quartet. Little ways back to Jansen and Ott, who are 5th and 6th. Lapino 7th. Harlow up into 8th. Beswick and Morris, your top 10 at the moment. And that battle around the top 10 really got separated by that crash we just saw on replays as well.
Yeah, certainly. Then we have more takers coming off pit lane who have decided to come down onto the lane and get their service done to avoid being held up. And looks like a few others as well, possibly looking to make some moves as the caution has come out. And those who have just exited pit lane will be getting a free kick.
That is a super early caution. One of the earliest we've seen this season. So it comes just 9 minutes into the race. And I'm just having a look because someone's out of sequence. That's Brad Newman. Just saw him drop from 8th place, and he's now somehow ended up in front of Hayden Veld. So he's made a mistake somewhere on this lap. Somewhere after the checkered striping before the caution flew?
I believe that would be due to the fact that he's just pitted.
You know what? That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? So Brad Newman may have just pulled the holy grail out of the car there, because he's now the lead car that's pitted. Everyone else gonna have to take a tour to the lane. Which is he should cycle right to the front.
Yeah, certainly will cycle to the front when everybody else takes their pit stop. A couple of others behind him as well who are yet to make their pit stop. So those unfortunately behind him, those who haven't pitted yet and behind him will unfortunately lose out. But that'll put, I believe, Jay Cool into second effectively and Kobe Williams into third as well. So very, very mixed up top three now with this caution being thrown.
So under the caution lights earlier than expected, under the actual lights as well, here in virtual Florida at Daytona International Speedway. Been a very interesting opening 10 minutes then on the first quarter of this race. Phil Sell fighting Bircher, Webster, Stewart, their names you expect to see up there on the series. Dane Warren with an early issue, he has now retired from the event. And Brad Newman pulling the strategy gamble and now finding himself as the provisional race leader, if everyone does, as we expect, dive to the lane. And now what is Harlow doing? Because
I would ask the same question.
he doesn't belong up there.
No, he technically belongs behind Lapino back in the P8.
All right, keep your eyes on pit road now. Cody Bircher fakes and decides maybe not. Oh, they're on the back straight, that's why.
I'm actually surprised for how many races you've commentated around here, Ryan, that you don't actually know what turn 2, the exit of turn 2 at Daytona looks like.
I mean, in my defense, I don't have one. Damn. I saw a car dart down and the track looks straight, so I thought it might be the pit straight. Surely everyone's going to come in. 28 minutes to go. Well and truly can make it home. And we're going to see a pretty jumbled up order. Going to be crucial not to make an error as you pull into your pit box. Don't slide through because you can easily cost yourself a handful of spots.
Yeah, certainly it will if you just overshoot it ever so slightly and have to put it back into reverse, or even if you just pull it up a little bit too early as well. So we'll see what happens, but everyone follows on down into pit lane to get their service in, apart from the likes of Brad Newman, although Newman is staying out, and even the car of Jackson Griffiths actually staying out as well.
Yeah, well, Newman's pitted, so that doesn't surprise us. Griffiths does surprise us a little bit there. See what his strategy is and how it plays out. Race off pit road. That bright yellow machine's going to win it. That is Phil Selt. Webster rolls off second ahead of Bircher, who passes him after the line. They'll have to sort themselves out here on this final pace lap. Very tight pit exit at Daytona, actually.
Oh,
no,
there's
a
crashing
crash.
under caution.
Well, it wouldn't be just send it without a crash under caution.
It certainly wouldn't, and a couple of drivers involved in that, Geordie Deckett, and I think that was the car of... I'm trying to find the name very quickly. It was
Jamie Jarros got hit. Yeah. So Reese Cohen was hit from behind into the back of Jarros. Now, who hit Cohen and why? Oh, so Cohen slammed on the brake pedal. Or rather, the car ahead of him slammed on the brakes.
Yeah, Sajara is getting on the brakes with everybody exiting pit lane, and then Harvey left with nowhere to go really, and ended up driving straight into the back of him. And there was another car. Bykoff was very, very lucky not to end up in that incident as well, running into the back of Harvey.
just have a look at where all our notable names are now in the field. So, obviously look out for Newman, because he's going to be starting as our leader. Griffiths was a lap down, so he got waved around. Looks like there's a few drivers that have taken the option to stay out, potentially, who are being scored between Newman and Phil Selt. So J. Cool could be Williams. So those cars behind Newman, they took the early pit stop as well. And so they've cycled out ahead of your race leader. So there's now 3 cars on this early stop strategy who've played themselves into a race-winning contention. Then there's Evan Morley in 4th, who... Now, he hasn't pitted.
Yeah, he hasn't. So he'll have to come down onto the lane at some point. 25 minutes to go. He might be able to save some fuel, but I don't think he'll be able to get home from here. And then you also got Jamie Jaros, who's yet to pit as well. So everybody apart from 2 of these drivers are yet to pit. So everybody's just going to be going hell for leather here for a 25-minute sprint to the end.
Biggest mover through the field so far is Jack Lemon from 48th to 13th. So he's gained 35 spots. And we're going to go back green now, as Phil Selt will have to give chase because Brad Newman takes us across the line. Top 3 break away off the jump.
Yeah, Jack Phil Selt getting caught off guard very much there. And actually, Carla of Morley jumping into pit lane off the start there. So Phil Selt actually having to wait before he could actually go, which balked him up. And there's been a colossal shunt further back in the field involving a few drivers, and it's still going on.
Matt Morris involved in this one. On the inside line. Looks like they're wrecking in front. That's Reese Cohen again. Morris, an innocent bystander on that one. Looks like that may have been the end of it.
I think it was, although just further back there was also Robert Crisdale being involved. But back in the front of the field, it doesn't actually look like the order has changed much, and Brad Newman's actually pulled a little bit of a gap back to Jay Cool as well, and Phil Selt's now right on the tail of this train.
Watch how much his closes in when he is at full throttle now, as he will be all the way back around to the start finish strike, with the exception of the stop chicane here. Braking is crucial. You can't overcook it, otherwise you're going to ruin yourself, and you will lose multiple seconds if you're having to slow up as you enter this part of the racetrack. So he dives out of the way as Cooper Webster goes by, so that means he's got to slow down. He's having to clear. James Golding's had an issue deeper in the pack as well, as we take a look at that.
Yeah, would appear he's ended up in the barrier at the bus stop, and there's also another car joining him at the middle of the bus stop. Not quite sure who that was, but nevertheless unfortunate for Golding. But back at the front of the field, Webster's now looking to make a big move up the inside of Williams here, and Birch is going to join him as well, possibly, but can't quite get the move done. But Newman has called all over his rear bumper now.
And Jay Cool was having a look at Brad Newman as well. It is on for the lead of the race, as Sewell again looks to the inside. Williams across the grass into the side as your race leader, and your top 3 ended up off the racetrack. Newman locked it up. Jay Sewell went with him, going too deep into the corner. Williams slid across the grass and collected, I think it was Harlow. Cody Bircher emerges as the race leader.
Yeah, it was Cooper Webster who got caught up in that rather than Harlow. He's not at all to see anyone, remember, Ryan? So unfortunate for Webster, but nevertheless, Harlow is actually now right on the tail of the lead of this race somehow.
Newman and Jay Cool throwing it off the racetrack in sympathy ahead of the crash, which was rather unfortunate for them, and has really shuffled this field up very quickly up at the front. And as you mentioned, Harlow has found himself in that leading group.
Yeah, he certainly has, and it's a very compacted top 5 at the moment. And Harlow going to look to the apron on the try over to get on by Bircher for the lead of the race. And he's going to do that with great succession. Now, Steve Jansen even looking to get involved, as well as Phil Seller and Job Stewart as well. They're all dicing and fighting with each other, but Phil Seller has to settle for third at the moment. Jansen loses a place, and Stewart going to look up the inside of Jansen again.
What a talented top three that is. Harlow, Bircher, and Phil. And there's contact behind as out into the grass, into the fence, Job Stewart.
Yeah, contact with, I believe it was Steve Jansen. Yes, it was. Just on the exit, and Jansen just putting himself there and being pretty much putting his hands up and going, I'm not moving. So, yeah, unfortunate for the car of Job Stewart. But nevertheless, Jansen's now all the way back with the likes of Emerson Harvey and Mia Ott and Jay Cole as well. So he's dropped off quite a bit. Now the top three have really broken away from the rest of the field.
Harlow has about a 5 or 6 car length advantage as well, but that's rapidly shutting down as headlights are flashing and Phil Sellers charging. Lifts off, doesn't want to go for it this time around at the bus stop, probably because he knows that Bircher is able to make a move on the lead. If he sits in behind, then he could probably follow him through, as behind them they file through the corner at a cool 200 kilometers an hour. This is the quartet of cars rounded out by Emerson Harvey, Steve Jansen, Jay Cool, Mia Ott ahead of him.
Yeah, certainly going to look to make a move. It was Emerson Harvey now going to pull out from the draft. Steve Jansen is there 2 by 2. Nearly contact, and Jansen off into actually pit lane.
Good save. He's going to have to take the pit exit as well, unfortunately, so he's going to be really compromised now. Big shame for him. It was actually Harvey on his outside that came down and just tagged him, I think, which turned him to the inside of the racetrack. You see there, he rejoins in amongst another crazy little battle. That's Matt Lapino just behind. He just completed an overtaking maneuver at the horseshoe on Eddie Bestwick.
On the apron, but Harlow at the moment looking like he's going to try and break away from this lead pack at the front of the field at the moment, as we're getting a motion simulation replay of Tyler Howard coming very quickly into pit lane, and that is not his pit speed at all.
Oh! That was tight. Phil Sells just dropped off the back of Bircher ever so slightly as he ranges up towards the G-Drive car of JSH. Just ahead of him is Evan Morley. He's about to go a lap down after restarting from 4th and then diving to pit lane as they went back green. That'll give Harlow a bit of a tow as both he and Bircher are flashing the lights in unison, as there's more contact with Tyler Howard as he does his best wrecking ball impersonation there on Brad Newman. Unfortunately, the victim to that.
Yeah,
that's the lap car in front of Harlow.
It certainly is. Morley deciding to get out of the way to avoid getting in trouble with these top 3 at the moment. Felicio is only just holding on at the moment by the looks of it, based on where he is, as Jansen is in pit lane to serve that stop and hold for what would be a dangerous pit exit after having to save the car from contact earlier on with, I believe it was Cody Bircher, if I'm not mistaken. But at the moment, still just behind it is Mia Ott, currently doing a really, really good job holding off the likes of Blake Purdy, Jay Cole, and Emerson Harvey, who are all really, really close together and really battling hard at the moment.
Mia Ott slowly starting to walk away from these guys as well. About probably 10 car length advantage she's got at the moment. As they battle behind, it's just giving her more and more room to breathe. Through the bus stop though, she's going to come under pressure because she's quite slow through there on this time, and Blake Purdy closes right up to just 4/10, 3/10 of a second. It gets closer with the blink of an eye, and Purdy is on her.
Yeah, he's within the draft range now. Is Blake Purdy possibly going to make a move here if he can get close enough? And he will as they come across the tri-oval, across the stripe, and Purdy's going to look to the inside on the apron, and that is going to be an easy move as Ott decides better of it to just let him go and sit on behind.
Good exit, though, for Nia. Might be able to get the run back up the inside at the horseshoe. James Golding back in 18th place, recovering from his incident earlier on, side by side with Daniel Aish on his outside. He's going to clear him. Good job. And there's a car off in front of them on the racetrack. Who was that? That's a Logitech car, Daniel Hall. So he's run into an issue. Drops half a dozen spots.
Yeah,
Cameron.
I was just going to say, we've seen a few cars off at turn one, and wondering if just the braking technique of this car has possibly caught a number of them out. But at the moment, Mia Ott doing really, really good to hold on to Blake Purdy. Looked like she could have got the move done at the International Horseshoe on the slap, but couldn't quite hold it around the outside. Now tucked right up behind Blake Purdy, possibly a little bit of bump drafting, but not quite, and just going to let him move away. I've also seen that Full Sail's moved into P2 on this lap as well, so Full Sail has got on by Cody Bircher, but Bircher's going to come back at him, and they're actually losing a bit of time to Jackson Susan Harlow as well, who's decided to fake a pit entry on the way down towards the tri-oval.
Yeah, Bircher was starting to fall back, and Full Sail said, that's enough. I need to have a shot at getting to Harlow. As Ott and Purdy are side by side again. And like the last up, there'll be a change of positions, but Purdy won't keep it. Overcooks it, locked up both fronts, and Ott goes back on by. 4.7 seconds off the race lead. Those two doing battle at the moment. Top three closing up once again, a second between them at the line. They're probably all just biding their time at the moment too, because we know 9 times out of 10 at Daytona, these races seem to come down to the line, not just on the oval, but in these road course races too, because of how much the oval we use and how much is full throttle, how effective the slipstream, the slingshot maneuver is. 13 minutes left, so expecting somewhere in the region of 5 or 6 more laps as well. No, it's probably inaccurate, about 7 or 8 more laps even. Daniel Webster, battle for 14th behind Jeff Connell.
Webster just not quite getting that good enough of an exit at the moment to try and keep on the back of Connell, but nevertheless doing a decent job of holding on to that draft at the moment. He's actually up 14 positions as well as Webster, so he's had a pretty decent run in this race so far to gain a handful of positions.
Jeff Connell, as well as relatively new to sim racing, has just seen a slow car being overtaken by the leaders with big damage. That's actually Hayden Veld, who's limping his car back to the lane. That's a colossal disappointment for him, although not for me. I pretty much expected that out of him today. So he'll cop a retirement as on track, just flashing by him. Mario Vartanian going to get lapped by Eddie Beswick and Job Stewart, and Vartanian actually just came right down in front of Eddie Beswick there, and now going to turn him around. So Vartanian, or rather that was Job Stewart. That was, sorry, they're not being lapped, but that was Job Stewart going very slow. Now he hip checks Vartanian out of the way, so Job Stewart's got a chip on his shoulder, it seems, at the moment.
Yeah, it certainly does, as those guys are not leaving anything on the table and are definitely giving each other a bit of a hard time to try and give themselves a hurry up, but it's not helping them anyway, especially to be giving themselves damage and also holding themselves up. But nevertheless, Vartanian all over the back of the car of Job Stewart at the moment, and both cars looking a little bit worse for wear, but nevertheless, still getting on with the job at the moment.
It has been scientifically proven, of course, that flashing the headlights makes the car in front of you 20% slower, as we see right there, as Stewart actually falls away. So in this case, flashing the headlights has actually flipped a lag switch on, and Joe Stewart has been teleported to Narnia. New leader, though, out front, Jared Filsell to the fore.
Yeah, so Filsell has finally made his way to the front of the field and managed to get on by Jackson Susan Harlow as well. So we'll see what happens as this race progresses on and whether Filsell actually decides to possibly do a bit of gamesmanship and try and check these boys up, or whether he's just going to sit out front and try and pull away. We'll have to wait and see. But nevertheless, still doing a fantastic job at the moment to keep this battle going for as long as it has over the past number of laps.
Showing the nose down at turn 4 doesn't work out. Miarot is around the outside of Purdy, into the back of Purdy, turning Purdy around.
Well, that's one way to overtake.
That's the dump and run right there. On board with Mia. She turns it in and just drives straight into the back of that matte black and red car. Don't think there's much defense for that one.
Yeah, there certainly isn't. It's pretty obvious what's going on there. It's unfortunate for Purdy, but nevertheless was a decent battle that was shaping up there between those two as the race went on.
Meanwhile, your leading trio across the line this time have just 2.5 tenths of a second covering them. As Filsell opts for a wider entry to the first corner, arcs it out, and that gives him a solid exit. As Harlow did have a look at the inside, but couldn't quite brake late enough to make it happen. Bircher behind, just sitting, looking and waiting, maybe being in third place, getting that double toe, might be the best place to be when it comes down to the final lap in about 4 or 5 laps time. Laps traffic could play a big part in the game as well, as we have a replay coming up. Now, that's Hayden Veldskar. Remember we highlighted his crash damage earlier on. This might be an explanation as to how he got it. As we head down towards the bus stop. Nope, this is the tri-oval. There's a car behind him. Wonder if this has been a it takes two to wreck situation. On the outside.
Yep, possibly is. I do believe the incident did actually happen in NASCAR 3, so we're a little bit behind, but...
God damn it, Jay. We gave you one job. Getting a good example there of how slow he is, which is at least a good representation in this car, I might add. Well, there's after the crash. This seems like a lot of effort. This better be a good crash.
I can very much, you can have full trust in me that it was a very solid shunt based on my own viewing.
That didn't look good. Here we go, into the bus stop. Here comes Haydenfeld. A few weeks ago, signed to a brand new team as well. Out of the bus stop, onto the grass, onto the racetrack. Showing an incredible talent to lose it there. As rear end goes around and he goes up and over he goes. Well, I mean, it takes some sort of talent to wreck in a straight line. I'll give him that much.
Not quite exactly sure what happened either. I wonder if he was trying to avoid the lap car that hit him, and then for a bit of a flight he went. I'm very impressed with the fact that he actually got that much airtime bouncing off the oval as well.
I was trying to think of the PG version of what the sentence I had on my head there, but I couldn't think of one. As Philcell and Harlow almost come together. As Harlow got through and Philcell almost went straight into his right rear quarter panel. That was very close, about as close as you want to get. And they've actually dropped Bircher.
Yeah, they certainly have, but they won't do it. Well, they won't be for long if they keep going the way they are with how hard they're battling, and they're going to go 2 by 2 nearly on the apron as Harlow had to put 2 wheels in the grass to avoid making contact. These two have been going at it very, very closely over the last few laps, and there's been a bit of radio chat between the two, and they're clearly not happy with each other, so expect possibly a bit of fire to come out of this, but Bircher now right back on the tail of these two.
Yeah, so you see there the disadvantage to battling. When you can't take the good line, it costs you quite a bit as Bircher was way behind and now is right back there with them as Philcell almost pushing Harlow through turn number 5. Now in turn 6, looks for the exit. Runs it in for a very early apex and then winds up that throttle.
Yeah, certainly is, and slightly more spread out at the moment coming through NASCAR 1 and 2, but Philcell closing and closing and closing, and a look to the inside, right off onto the non-racetrack, but they're going to go side by side into the bus stop again, and Philcell is going to go round the outside of Harlow, and with a brilliant bit of driving.
And Philcell actually almost ended up hitting Harlow as he rejoined from the adventurous line. So going to be careful doing that at least. So Harlow should take it away now, but Philcell probably look for the crossover move and cut down across the back bumper. He does, but he doesn't get the exit.
Yeah, certainly doesn't quite get the exit. There's a lapped car right in the middle of both of them. That nearly ended in complete and utter disaster.
Well, I did say lap traffic could play a part in this leading battle, and Aiden Brand almost played a monumental part in deciding how this race is going to finish. Back onto NASCAR 1 and 2. 2 car lengths between our race leaders becomes 1, and then it becomes half, and then they become side by side as Harlow defends the inside. Philcell coming down to side draft him, and then swings it back out wide for the entry.
Oh, bit of contact on the way through, though, between Harlow and Philcell.
And now Bircher's got the run.
He's got a very, very good run on Harlow here, but it's probably not quite going to be enough actually to have actually got on by, and now Harlow's going to look to the apron, try and go by.
3 wide.
He's just going to get it at the line. Is going to be 3 wide on the way into turn 1, but Bircher thinks better of it, and Philcell's going to take the lead back.
2 laps to go at Daytona, and it's a 3-way fight. The person to capitalise if they come together is Ott, who's already picked up a few Moses-esque wins so far in Just Send It history. We should get another one today if these 3 come together. 2 lapped cars in front. That's Nathan Kaiser. He runs it wide. Philcell has to check up. And then goes off the racetrack. Marco Pavic is next up, and probably the last lapped car they will come across. He's actually going to end up giving Philcell a little decent tow here.
He certainly is, and it's going to help Full Sail just have that slight little bit more of an advantage. Well, that advantage is going to disappear very, very quickly come the next lap, but nevertheless, we'll have to wait and see what happens. But for the meantime, Full Sail is going to have a nice little bit of a draft to help him defend from Jackson Susan Harlow. Is not going to be able to get close enough to make a move at the bus stop this time around, but he's going to at least have the draft, and Full Sail has to check up, and Harlow's going to go straight on by.
So, turns out that decent toe is not quite as good for Phil Self as he might have hoped. Harlow lifts off. Has he got a slowdown? In fact, he cut the track, so he has got a slowdown. That might take him out of the fight, as Bircher now to the outside of Phil Self. Here's a replay on board with Harlow. He can't hit the cones on the apron there, and he's hit him.
Yeah, certainly not ideal for Harlow, especially on this last lap here, and it's put him right out of the fight, and possibly going to bring Mia Ott into possibly getting a podium here. And that appears to be Daniel Age on his side, and has just been collected by Kobe Williams. Not quite sure how he got there or why he'd been sitting there for quite some time by the looks of it.
All right, then. This is it. On to NASCAR 1 and 2. Phil Self's not got enough of a gap. Bircher's going to be all over him. He's lost it by himself, and he spins it. And Cody Bircher will streak through into the lead of the race. And he's got this one in his hands now. It's his to lose. A massive gap back to Harlow that won't be shut down unless there's a mistake. Mia Ott emerges in third. Phil Self, a colossal error.
That has to be one of the most uncharacteristic mistakes I've ever seen Full Sail make. He's not prone to making those sort of mistakes on his own. So to have made that sort of mistake, it's really, really uncanny. And I think Harlow might have got a... Oh, as Mia Ott's been taken out by Blake Prudy.
Mia Ott will not be catching Harlow. Cody Bircher gonna win the race after a mistake. Hand it to him, but he was right there anyway. Cody Bircher wins at Daytona. Harlow will come home in second, Ott in third, after being absolutely destroyed by Blake Purdy. Phil Self home in fourth. Blake Purdy here was clearly exacting some revenge on Ott turning him around earlier on. And I think you could say that's probably the ultimate display of bad sportsmanship.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that
Seen a bit about today, actually. It just send it. All had to have a bit of fun. Unfortunately, the fun sometimes seems to give way to multiple drivers making moves like that today. And actually seen about 3 or 4 people be removed from the server as a result. Bit disappointing, but in the end, we come to the end of another great night overall of Just Send It. Kobe Williams home in 23rd after having a pretty wild race. It was Daniel Aish who was on his side, remember, as we begun that white flag lap. There he is. And he's actually got into the side of someone else, and oh, that's unfortunate.
Oh, no. That has to be one of the most unfortunate moments to have happened, and he sat there for quite some time as well, trying to get back on all fours until Kobe Williams came around and gave him a bit of a helping hand.
So, that's what happened to Daniel Aish. She'll be bitterly disappointed with that. Let's take a look at our results then from Florida, the Daytona International Speedway. Cooper Webster, Cody Bircher, rather, coming home as the victor. Wow. Ahead of Jackson, Susan, Harlow, and Mia Ott. Gerard Philsell, Emerson Harvey, the top 5. Matt Lupino, Jordan Mulak, Jay Cool, Blake Purdy, and Murray Vartanian making up your top 10.
And we go back to Daniel Webster and James Golding, and just outside the top 10 in 11th and 12th. 13th and 14th to Jeff Connell, Robert Crisdale in 14th. Rounding out the top 15, Cooper Webster after that unfortunate incident earlier on in the race. Reese Cohen finishing in 16th, up from 30th on the grid, and Jonathan Bykoff up from 38th on the grid to 17th. So good races for those guys. Dwayne Priest also in 18th from 42nd on the grid, so a good race from him. And then Matt Morris and Daniel Hall rounding out the top 20.
Yeah, 21st on this one goes to Jason Newman, Steve Jansen, Brad Hayes, Toby Williams, and Daniel H for the final cards on the lead lap. Then Brad Newman, Nathan Kaiser, Pete Dunham, Aidan Brand, and Paul Fost were the first cars a lap down, and they made up your top 30. And then we get into the retirements and guys that finished multiple laps down. Eddie Bestwick back there, Chad Lewis, Mark Wicks, Jackson Griffith, Marco Pavic, Mitchell Morley, Deckert, Jaros, Manif, and then your final 15 cars on screen there. Some notable names like Job Stewart, who didn't have a good night, a bit uncharacteristic for them.
Yes, certainly not ideal night for a number of these drivers who got caught up in incidents or had some form of issue in the race, but nevertheless, it was a typical Daytona show of big scenes and big draft.
It always is. It always is. And just said it. What will it be next week? I don't know, but probably something similar along the lines of absolute chaos, mayhem, and good racing all thrown into one. Make sure you tune in at the same time, or, have a crack yourself at 7:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time when those servers open if you want to get amongst it. 8:15 for the broadcast next Tuesday night right here on Just Send It Facebook and SimSpeed YouTube. For tonight, that's it. From myself, Ryan Jones, Cameron Dance alongside and Jay Kennedy behind the scenes. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's got everything outside of both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my God. Oh. Big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go.
Oh no.
That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?